All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Oh man, I was off pitch there.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. Good morning, Peter. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are you making out?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Feeling better. You and I kind of just went through a bout of some COVID there, huh?
So, I dodged it for 2.5 years.
Yeah. Last week we did a rerun. So we did episode 106, which was I think it was called
the one about goals?
Goals are for losers or something like that.
Loser.
Anyways, here we are, episode number 337. We're back on track. And today's episode title is New Rookie System to Negotiate Gargantuan Creative Deals Easily. Here's the description. Talking to sellers, I'll give that to you again. Talking to sellers, you are told, is the only way to make creative real estate deals. So you try, you practice your scripts, even record your conversations to make adjustments so you can do better on the next call. But you're still struggling with what to do when, and feel you are still messing things up and not making deals. Fret no longer. In this single podcast, we're going to reveal a new little system that is super easy to learn with gargantuan results for rookies or pros looking to do creative real estate deals that produce money now, money monthly, money later, so you can retire early or maybe even fire your boss. And if you have not done your first deal or made your first $5,000, this is going to be a quantum leap into creative real estate. Why am I so bold and confident about this? Because it is a simple step-by-step negotiating tool for anyone to use that sellers love and say yes to. So make sure you listen a few times and take notes. This information is only here, nowhere else to date, until someone copies us.
Oh no.
So let's get into it.
Okay.
So you ready, Peter?
I'm ready.
All right, so first of all, let's do our housekeeping. Inside the description of this podcast, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, there is a link there. And in the link, there's some goodies. Especially this week, I actually put a document, a PDF document together with 3 separate tools inside of it.
Wow.
Yeah, to make sure, make sure you have plenty of materials to use with this podcast. Also, make sure you subscribe to us. We're already getting hearts. Thank you for the hearts. Also, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast wherever you're watching or listening. Make sure you like us. We record this podcast at Thursday mornings, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I know that's not the best time for a lot of people, but that's when we record it. And then we distribute it through our system in the podcast system on Mondays. So if you so desire and would like to have a chance to ask some questions, you can go to Facebook, you can go to YouTube, or you can go to Twitter. And while we're doing the podcast, if you type in the comments or wherever it allows you to type a question, we will answer it as long as it's pertaining to the podcast. If you have any other questions, you can go to 2 places. You can go to WhatsApp Messenger and look for it's called Let's Talk Real Estate on WhatsApp Messenger. And there's a group there you can get part of. There's a bunch of us in there that talk real estate all the time. It's totally free. Or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and click on the support button on the top right-hand side. And those come to me personally, and I answer all those questions, usually daily. Sometimes it takes me 2 days, but it depends on what I'm up to. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Here we go, Peter. Let's start.
Take it away.
Number one question any entrepreneur should ask themselves is, how can I make myself so different that there is no or very low competition?
Mm.
Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels teaches in his book, Expert Secrets, that you need to identify who you want to serve. It's a Dan Kennedy thing. Who do you want to serve? Now, I've talked about this, and we're going to get into this a little bit today, but who do you want to serve? Like, who is, they call it an avatar. Who's the person you want to work for?
Yep.
And Russell says in his book, Expert Secrets, that there's three markets. There's always three different types of markets. And those markets are wealth, health, and relationships. Those are the three markets that most people go after. Okay, that's
wealth, health, and relationships.
Yeah, those are the three markets that most internet gurus go after. And once you pick one of these, meaning wealth, health, and relationships, there's a sub-market, and then there's a niche within that market, right? So, like, for example, you could say wealth, and then real estate, and then flipping houses on eBay.
Yeah.
Right. So it would be wealth, and then the sub market would be flipping houses, and then the niche would be flipping houses on eBay. Okay. That type of thing. That's the example he gives in his book. So how do you do this in real estate? How do you find sellers who match your niche or niche, however you say it, right? Or what you're good at doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's a big thing. A lot of real estate people, creative, especially creative real estate people, they come into it and they come into it backwards thinking that they need to know everything. When really, if they take a look at what we're going to teach today, especially, and if they listen to some of our past podcasts, the best thing to do is to go after people that meet your niche or what you're good at first. Do a couple deals, get used to things, and then when you run into a seller that's outside of your niche or outside of your education, that's when you go get educated. But you should not educate yourself on everything. You should educate yourself only on what you have in front of you. So if you're good at doing lease options, and then all of a sudden the subject to deal comes up, then you learn how to do subject to, and you don't learn how to do it until it's time for you to do that deal.
That makes sense. It's more practical that way.
Otherwise, it'll drive you crazy, right? And for some of us, like Peter and I, driving crazy is a short drive because we're already close.
You go out my driveway, you take a left, you hit the corner, we're done.
So basically, you're like the GPS, right? You're like the GPS. And when you put in the GPS, it says, are you going to use a car or are you going to walk? We'll walk.
Yeah.
Kia says, great tip. You got it. You're welcome. All right. So today I'd like to show you how to do all of this in a natural, easy to do manner so you can get your first $5,000 or start building your retirement early fund. Excuse me. I have no idea where that came from. God bless me. But just realize I'm going to give you some theory first, then how to do it.
Okay.
I have to do it this way because if I don't give you the details or the theory, you may not understand how important this little system will change your life. Okay. First, let's undercut everything with first, let's undercut everything you know about creative real estate and negotiating real estate right now. And this is my new breakthrough.
Really?
I call it perceived value. Let's start with the word value, which means holding something in high regard.
Right.
Or being beneficial or useful even estimated monetary worth. Wow.
Well, that seems to open the door to the next word you're going to say. Because
Yeah.
how do you know something is valuable? Why do people pay so much for certain things?
Right. So let me read that again. So the definition of value is holding something in high regard, or being beneficial or useful, even estimated monetary worth. Now, how different would your life be if that's how your seller thought of you?
Well, yeah.
Right? Holding something in high regard, or being beneficial or useful, even estimated monetary worth.
Well, you'll know when it happens because people will talk to you completely different.
Right.
Like they actually like you, or they really want to talk to you. They're interested. Whatever you say, they're willing to do. It's really different.
So there's a very little tool, a very little simple tool or formula that you know this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's when your seller's chasing you and you're not chasing them.
Yep.
And when I mean chasing, I mean they're following up with you, like, how we doing? What's going on? What's next? What do I need to do?
Yep.
Instead of you doing that with them. If you don't call them for a few days, they call you. They text you. They may not call you. They'll text you, like, what's going on? Right? Or very often you'll talk to them and you'll give them a few things to do, like go get your mortgage statement, find out how much you owe for taxes, and talk to your wife and make sure everything's okay.
Yep.
Right?
And they actually do all those things within a day or two.
Well, here's
You
the
don't have
point.
to call them 5 times to get it done.
Here's the point that I'm making is they do it and then they contact you before you contact them. Or when you call them, they're like, yep, I did this, I did that, I did this.
Yeah.
Right?
And they email it to you, they make copies, they send it on your phone, they're in communication, they're cooperating,
Right.
They're on the team.
That's how you know that there's value. You're holding something, they're holding you in high regard, or being beneficial to them, or useful, even estimated monetary worth. All right, so that leaves us with the definition of perceived. All right, so it's perceived value, right? So the definition of perceived is a customer's own mental understanding of a product or service's merit or desirability to them, especially in comparison to a competitor's product or service. So perceived, my definition of perceived, is a customer's own mental understanding of a product or service's merit. Right? What does that mean, merit?
It would be like some value to you.
Yeah, it's worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or desirability, a customer's own mental understanding of a product or service's merit or desirability to them, especially in comparison to a competitor's product or service. It is the customer's overall assessment of the product or service based on what information that customer receives and fully believes could or should happen. And I go through this with my coaching clients because it's a confident thing. Two people could say something, like I could say it with total confidence, and I get a coaching client that says it with less confidence, and it won't come across right.
Yeah, one of us, no names mentioned, neither you nor I, actually mentioned that they were talking to a seller, and the seller said to the person on the phone, "Gee, you don't sound very confident."
Right.
The last thing you want to hear on the phone, right?
Yeah. And it's not hard to do. You just, I mean, when I go through what I'm going to go through today and how to use it, first of all, what I'm trying to do is get away from scripts, because scripts are too rote. So what I'm trying to do is come up, and I think I've got it. I think I've nailed it here. A system that is simple enough that you can naturally speak to a client, but get the right information. And that builds confidence, right? So So a perceived to perceive is it's the customer's overall assessment of the product or service based on what information that customer receives and fully believes, they have to believe it, could or should happen. Now listen to this. This is very important. It's a very small part of today's podcast, but listen to what I'm going to tell you, because I'm going to tell you this is a huge datum that I am not going to spend much time on, because I could do a whole podcast on just this next sentence. But I'm not going to. I'm going to skim right over it. But if you're taking notes, you should write this down. What does Jay Connolly say? Or what is it?
Jay Connor.
Connor.
All right, folks, it's a writer downer.
It's a writer downer. That's what he says in his seminar. This is a writer downer.
Where's he from? North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. All right, here we go. Truth is, if you don't have an agenda, people around you will be very glad to put you to work on theirs. Truth is, if you don't have an agenda, people around you will be very glad to put you to work on theirs.
Interesting choice of word, because when you're talking to somebody, you know damn well they're wondering, what's your agenda, right?
Which is why I bring it up, because we're going to reverse it, because most of them don't have an agenda, so we're going to put them on ours. Instead of, right, the way I'm making it here is the reason why you're not doing creative real estate. The only reason why you're not doing creative real estate is if you don't have an agenda, people around you will be very glad to put you on theirs. Your mom and dad, your kids, your spouse, your job, your exercise routine, your grocery shopping, your laundry, your sex life, your social life, your TV agenda. Those are all things that are interfering with real estate. Because if you don't have an agenda, you believe it and want to execute it, then it's kind of like I've said in past podcasts. It's either you're living life or life is living you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So like I said, we could do a whole podcast on that. In creative real estate, too often, our guys don't understand. So our guys, meaning our rookies and our listeners right now, in creative real estate, too often, our guys don't understand the seller's agenda and try to force their agenda onto the seller, then wonder why they don't do deals. Too often, my other partner, Sean, used to do this to me all the time. He doesn't anymore, but used to you got to call this person immediately. They're a subject to deal. They're ready to go. Oh, my God, you got to call them. Can you call them right now? And I get on the phone with them, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And really what happened is he did the math and realized that it was a good subject to deal. So he decided his agenda was we should do a subject to deal. But the seller doesn't even know what a subject to deal is.
Yeah, and we don't own the house. The seller does.
Yeah. And so we impose our agenda or what we think we should do on the seller, and they just resist it.
Yep.
They have their own agenda. So wouldn't it make sense that we figure out what their agenda is? Right? Dan Kennedy said it the best years ago. I read this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You want to get into the conversation they're already having in their head.
Oh, that's good.
Right? You want to get in the middle of the conversation they're already having in their head. Is really
well, they're already thinking something. As a matter of fact, just to get off for a second, I did a communication course once. I think you know what I'm talking about. Where you see somebody, you want to have a conversation with them. You walk over and you just see what they're looking at. Like they're looking at a billboard. And you go, what do you think of the billboard?
Right.
What do you think of the product? They're already looking at it. So you just, you're trying to find out what they're looking at in their head. Of course, you're on a phone. You're not looking at their eyes or their environment, but what are they already doing in their head? Try to find that out.
So what most people don't realize is human beings completely run off of mental image pictures.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know they're there. We look at them and we don't. It's like saying to a fish, "Hey, the water in your bowl is dirty," and he's like, "What water?"
Yeah.
He's surrounded by it, doesn't even know it's there. He doesn't recognize it anymore. So
Yep.
mental image pictures are what the entire world runs off of. We call that thought, right? So the point that you're making is that you have a mental image picture. I have a mental image picture. Your job is to describe to me to the best way possible what mental image picture you're looking at, because I can't see it.
Yep. But we have to ask enough questions to find out what the other guys think. I mean, it's like dating. I keep coming back to that example. You want to go out with a girl, you got to try to figure, does she want to see a movie? What kind of food does she like? Someone just invited us over for dinner. Like, what food do you want to have? They want to cook something that I'll eat or my wife will eat. What's
Right.
on the list? They ask the questions. They find out. It's not that terribly hard, but you got to find out.
Right. So the slang is, or at least our slang is, and you've heard me say it, is so you have a mental image picture and you're looking at that picture. So your job is to describe it to me, and so I can fully duplicate it like a copying machine or a facsimile.
Yeah.
Right. It's a facsimile, like you're going to fax something and it comes out exactly the way you sent it. Right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That's what you want to do. You want to do it that. So here's the major or new discovery in our system that is working extraordinary. Ready?
Yep.
There are actually 2 steps we need when trying to find out what's going on with the seller or how to analyze a deal.
Okay.
1, you need to analyze the data. It's mostly the math of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so if you're buying a $200,000 house and they have a $4,000 a month payment, there's no sense of going further because you're not going to find a buyer that's going to pay $4,500 a month on that payment.
Nope.
But if you've got a $1 million house and it's a $4,000 payment, that's a Rob job. You can easily get $6,000 for a payment. Yep. Right? So the first thing you need to do when talking to a seller and you're doing your discovery, I'm going to show you how to do that before we leave here, right? Is first thing you need to realize is you need to analyze the data, which is just the math. It is not the house. It is not the description of the house. It's not the layout of the house. It's not any of that. We do that later in the deal meeting. But when you're talking to a seller at first, all we're trying to do is we're trying to find out the math and their motivation. Right. So the first thing you need to do is you need to analyze the data. The second thing you need to do is you need to analyze the situation. So first is the math. Second is, why are you selling and all that? Why did you come up with that price? And I'm going to show you how to do that very simply because after all these years of trying to teach this to people, I actually have it nailed. I'm excited about this podcast because I've been trying to teach this for 5 years. And it's been so difficult. And now I've got it nailed.
Nice.
Okay. But before we go any further, let's define analyze. Which means, analyze means to discover or reveal something through detailed examination. Which is a good definition, but you know me and Peter in words, right? We don't just
dig.
We don't like to just, I want to understand words because words and symbols make mental image pictures. Right? If you read anybody like Silva, I forgot his first name. Silva is his guy's last name.
Dan Silva?
No, in the early 50s, he put a book out on how to improve your memory. Mm-hmm. And what it is it's about making mental image pictures. Right? Oh yeah. It's like really cool. So anyways, I diverse there. Analyze means to discover or reveal something through detailed examination. Mm-hmm. Right? Until you look at the derivation of analyze, you don't realize the word comes from analysis. Mm-hmm. Right? An analysis means to unloosen or break apart something so you can understand the pieces.
See, now that's good.
Right?
Yeah, that's good. Anytime you have a problem like the car doesn't work, I look at it and I see an engine that doesn't move. You, on the other hand, can take it apart and go, well, it's not this, it's not that, it must be over here. And you keep tracing down to like the actual problem because you know more about it than I do. You can break it down. You can take things apart, unscrew something. So you really breaking it down to what's going on.
Right. So we talked about that in episode number 336. It's like knowing the ideal situation or the ideal scene, so you know what is not correct. Right.
Yeah.
You can't compare. You don't know whether you have a good apple or a bad apple until you have a good apple or bad apple. My old man used to tell me all the time. This is a perfect analogy to this. He used to tell me all the time. You can't appreciate the sunshine until it rains.
Yep.
You have to have a comparison. You call that a dichotomy, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have a comparison. You have to know what rain is before you can appreciate the sunshine, or vice versa.
Yep.
Right. So when you're comparing data, it helps to know that. But that was in episode 336 when I got to go there. Okay. So now we have the core of this theory.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which goes back, which, by the way, the theory is perceived value. And the only way we're going to get perceived value is to ask, what do you think? Like you said, what do you want for dinner?
Yeah. Well, perceived means, what you think, what you're looking for.
Right.
Right. And it's not what it really is. I mean, we all know there's guitars that sell for $100,000 because who the hell played it or how old it is or some damn thing. And it might not even work anymore. But somebody perceives or thinks, to them it looks like it's valuable, so they'll pay it. Otherwise, not so much.
Right.
It's your opinion, really.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to look at, now that we've looked at this core value of perceived value, let's get out of the think tank.
Mm-hmm.
And let me show you how to easily collect vital information from your seller and tell you what their perceived value is. Then make your offer based on those perceived values, so it is kind of hard for the seller to say no.
Mm.
It's kind of like me doing a survey on my email list.
Yeah.
Like, what's your favorite donut?
Mm-hmm.
And I survey 30 people or 50 people, and they say chocolate. And then 2 days later, I sell on my email list chocolate donuts. Like, what do you think? I mean, I asked people, what's your favorite donut before I sold donuts?
Doesn't that go back in a way to the old idea? I think you're breaking it down way past this, but have the seller make the offer in the sense of you're finding out exactly what they want. So they're making the offer. If you ask somebody what they want and you hand it to them, then are they supposed to say no?
Right.
But you have to find out what they want.
Right.
And sometimes they don't know.
Right. Yeah, they have to work it through. They have to work it through. Yeah.
Sometimes you help them by helping them figure out what they want. You realize how helpful that is when somebody's in a mess with a house. They don't know how to get out of it. They're in foreclosure, or they have too many houses, or this one is a pain in the neck for whatever reason. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how they could possibly get out of it. Maybe they can't sell it with a realtor because it's over leveraged, whatever. You can help them figure out what they want. That is crazy. Yep. Think of the times you've done that with somebody, like, oh my God, I could do that.
Every deal that I bought has been that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So we start with our 4 questions. We need to analyze and calculate every deal with, plus make our offers with. Yep. So those four. Now this is analyzing the data. This is the 4 pieces, right? Is price, 1, 2 is payment, 3 is duration, how long will they take the payments for, and 4 is deposit if they ask for it, right?
Yeah.
That means your information collection should go like this. Okay? Ask. This is the first thing. So you hi, my name is Bill Hawthorne. I'm calling about the house at 123 Main Street. Is the house still for sale? Yes. Whose name is on the deed? Okay, good. Then you ask this. What's your asking price? That's data analysis right there.
Yeah, but do you realize, folks, that the question is what's your asking price, not what's your price?
Right.
What's your asking price? They can ask what they want, but we're not done. That can go up, it can go down a little bit or a lot. I talked to a guy 2 weeks after the first conversation. The price went down $40,000.
Yeah.
Because I asked the right question.
Right.
And it was not the price, it's asking price. See, these words are powerful. I'm serious.
So
you don't notice something like that.
So the question is, what's your asking price? That's your data analysis. Now you need to do your situation analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes like this. Here's how you do it. And there's 6 steps for each data analysis that you need to go through. And they're very simple and very natural. But here's how it goes. So what's your price? First thing you would do is you observe the response.
Mm-hmm.
Are they like totally certain about this price? Or is there a little question about whether they should be charging?
Bill, I actually had somebody the other day say, well, I'm going to start high so I could go low, but I'm not going to start low and go lower. I'm starting high so I can go lower. Like, well, thanks for tipping me off to that. Right. Thanks a lot.
That's number 1. So step number 1 is observe the response.
That's interesting.
Number 2, notice any oddities, or if there are none, move on.
Oddities like?
Yeah. So example would be the house is worth 200, they're asking 250.
Oh, okay. Just something odd about the price, or okay.
Yeah, there's some weirdness about it, right? Like it just doesn't. Why did he say that?
You mean like the time the guy asked me, like $500,000 for a stinky little tiny condo?
Right.
That guy?
That's worth $100,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important. And this is why I came up with this, because we get this with texting, especially like when we're in Ohio. House, like you said, it's worth $80,000, and they're like, "Yeah, it's for sale. Give me $500,000." That's an oddity. There's something wrong, right? Yep. So step 1 is observe the response. Step 2 is notice any oddities. If there are any, if there aren't, just move on. This is all natural. This happens in like seconds.
Yeah.
Right? Step 3. And this is where most people lose it. You have to establish if the asking price is an ideal offer for you and your buyer with a profit on top of the asking price. So I say, what's your asking price, Peter? And you say 200,000.
Yeah.
And there's no oddity there or nothing like that. It's worth, we'll say 220. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to immediately go into the mode of my buyer.
Right.
Will my buyer pay $220 for this house? How popular will this be when I bring it to the market? In other words, it's not the other way around. It's worth $175, and I'm going to bring it to the market for $220. That's not going to be very popular. So right away, you have to look at the ideal offer at this point.
And you're comparing it like a dichotomy, like the plus and minus of, if I have to pay that, can I get this from a buyer?
Right.
And it's probably been a year we've been looking at it more that way, because you can do it faster in your head, and us rookies don't really know off the top of our
but
head.
once you make 3 or 4 offers in an area, you should know what the area is worth.
That's right.
But now listen, hang on.
Yeah.
Step number 4, if the price is not favorable, note the outpoints or the oddities that are visible. So they're asking $200,000 for a $150,000 house. You note that.
Yeah.
Step number 5 is follow up with the seller with why they chose that price and why he or she thinks it's correct. And then step number 6, now you need to reestablish whether or not this is going to be popular with your buyers or an ideal deal. Silence.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering.
It's very natural when you do it. It sounds more complicated with me describing it. So I'm just going to read them again, okay?
Yeah.
Step 1, you ask the question, what's the price in the house?
Mm-hmm.
You observe the response. Step 2, if there's any oddities, right? Then you note them.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to figure out what's the ideal scene. Like what am I going to do with this house? What's the ideal way for me to sell this house? What are sellers going to like? And you compare them.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you have an ideal scene, like, oh, well, I can sell this for 200, not 220, and he's asking 200. Now you need to go back in and you need to so step 4 is if the price is not favorable, now the out points and the oddity is visible because you're going to talk to your seller about it. Mm-hmm. And then step number 5, you're going to bring it up with the seller. Like, okay, well, I can't sell it for $200,000. Why are you asking that price? Mm. And then step 6 is now that you've gotten all the information, the situation, because you're just evaluating the situation, you can now make a decision whether I'm going to stay or go.
Yep.
Right? If there's a major so if there's a major departure from what you really want to do, like they're asking $300 for a $200,000 house, or a huge gap, and this is the way when I say departure, this is what I'm talking about. There's a huge gap between what your seller's perceived value is and your buyer's perceived value is.
That's making more sense the way you're saying that in this context, because we just come through a market where sellers' perceived value was higher and buyers were willing to do it, but no longer. So we're getting this lag of the seller still thinks his house is worth a bunch, and the buyers don't think that anymore. Our market has changed at the end of 2022, and people's perceptions are, gee, I thought I could get this much. Yeah, not anymore, dude. And it's changing.
Right. So what I'm saying is that these 6 steps, so you ask the price, which is the data analysis. And then there's these 6 steps to find out the situation analysis. And these are not scripted. They're just you being human and just curious and observing.
So question, the reason I was staring at you a couple of minutes ago, I'm wondering if you have the same 6 type questions for each of the 4 numbers.
I haven't gotten there. Yes.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, So
yes.
the 6 are they 6 different questions each, or they're 6 questions, the same 6 type? So it'd be a type of question that you can categorize. Right. And actually, because I'm still trying to figure out, what did you just do? What is this? What are these
we just did the first was price. Mm-hmm. So we observed, right? We noticed any oddities.
Yeah.
We then put it up against the ideal scene of selling. Like, will our buyers like this? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, then we went back in and we looked for the out points and brought them up to the seller. Like, well, I can't do that because, right? And then we get to the end, and now we know it completely what the situation is.
Okay.
Yeah. We would do the same thing for price, the same thing for duration, and the same thing for deposit if they ask for it. Mm-hmm. It's the same 6 steps. Now, those 6 steps can happen in like 2 or 3 minutes. It takes more for me to explain it to you. And if you write them down, that's why I'm telling you to take notes, because I'm not doing it for you. I'm not giving you a document with these in them. I'll do that for my coaching clients, but I'm not doing it for these listeners. So you need to write them down. And then if there's a huge gap between what the buyer's willing to buy for, and what the seller's willing to sell for, then, because the buyer has a perceived value and the seller has a perceived value, and you're the matchmaker, putting them together, right?
Yeah.
But I want to tell you something, and this is huge, so please hear me loudly. There's a word of caution here. You need to do this formula on all 4 steps. On the price, the payment, duration, and deposit if they request one. Here's why. The price could be way too high. But the cash flow and duration could be exceptional and give you huge profits. Like my comment has always been, yeah, I'll pay whatever price you want as long as I get to pick the terms.
Yep.
Right? This is the reason why one of the things I put in the link today in the chat, in your description, my paper calculator. Because you write all this stuff down, and my paper calculator forces you to do exactly what we're talking about. So you should use this little formula to extract the seller's perceived value, then match it to what the buyers think. This is huge. I know it sounds technical and I know it sounds difficult, but I'm telling you, when you do it a couple times, that's why I want you to listen to this podcast a few times. When you do it a couple times, it is so easy. It's just the natural flow of how the conversation should go.
Yeah.
I promise you, do it 3 or 4 times. It'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I never did that.
Well, you know what I like about it better? We used to try to find out motivation maybe earlier or disconnected from those numbers. Right. And it actually was weird that you're asking questions like kind of out of the blue. But if you ask an actual question, like how much are you asking for the house? And you ask some questions about that, it actually seems more logical and normal to have that conversation about something rather than, why are you selling the house?
Right.
What do you need the money for? Like, why are you asking me these questions? Don't bother me, right?
Right. Right.
But in the right context, it makes more sense to them. They don't even, it's not weird then.
Right.
So when you
and they're going to actually tell you how they feel. And they're actually going to tell you the situation and how they feel. Because see, here's the thing. Here's the big behind the scenes on Bill's Planet, big aha moment, which by the way happened at about 11 o'clock at night, driving home smoking a cigar. It just popped in my head. I have no idea why. I wasn't even thinking about it. Right? So here's the point. Each point, price, duration, payment, each point has its own situation. There isn't just one situation. There isn't just one problem in every deal. It's broken down into those 4 elements.
It's true. He needs his price because he needs this much a month because, and he can only wait this much time because there's a reason in his head for each of those.
Right.
See, to me, real estate is different than buying smaller items because even a car, it's a few years and it has similar things like a payment and all that and duration. But other than that, it's groceries, $100. Go buy them. Shut up. Go home. Put them on your card. Pay it at the end of the month. Make 2%, bonus points. But it's still small and it doesn't have this many parts. So real estate it's so big, it stretches out. Payments, duration, how much, and it stretches out. So there's more to analyze, more to play with, more to work with, and more opportunities to help somebody or not connect. You don't connect.
Right.
But if you know what you're looking for, these are 4 opportunities to connect with somebody with what they're trying to do. And you clarify for them as well what they're doing with each of those. How much do they really need? What for? How much do they need per month? Why? I said this maybe a couple of weeks ago. I had someone on the phone with a tiny condo many years ago, $2,000 a month payment. Like what? On like a $100,000 condo. Like what? So you couldn't do it. It was a 15-year mortgage. Some people try to get ahead when they find they're behind, so that didn't work out.
Right. All right, cool. So that makes sense. I hope. So there's 2 more major points I want to make before we go.
Yep.
1, if you don't know what the buyer's perceived value is. Right? So you're talking to the seller and they're saying, okay, well, it's worth $200,000. You're not sure.
Yeah.
Could either be a new area, you're brand new to real estate, you're nervous about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I get a lot of people that ask me, how do I know what a house is worth? Right? Here's what you do. You sign a 30 to 90 day option agreement. I prefer to do 30, but you could do 90. You could do 60, you could do 45 days, pick whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
You sign a 30 to 90 day option agreement with the seller. Then you go to the house, you bring the house to the market and see what the buyer's willing to pay. Figure out what the perceived value is.
Yeah.
So what you do is you get an option agreement. You say to the seller, okay, you go through the system I just taught you, and you find out, okay, they want $200,000. They're willing to take $1,600 a month, and they're willing to do it for 2 years, which is a slot deal, right? You're not sure. So you tell them, okay, well, I'm not sure. I'm going to bring it to the market and find out what the buyers say. And if I can find you a buyer, then we'll close on the deal.
Yeah.
Now, first thing I want to bring up is, how is that any different than what a realtor does?
Exactly. They got nothing to lose.
So the realtor doesn't promise them they're going to sell them a house. They promise them they're going to go market the house and find them a buyer. And then they negotiate.
Yep.
So we're doing the same thing, right?
Sure.
So we're going to go find the buyer, and we're going to do that. Now, the way you do that is you go on to Zillow for rent, not selling, Zillow for rent, where you rent because you're going to do a rent to own. Or you go on Facebook Marketplace and just put an ad up that says, you take pictures and you put an ad up that says house for sale, no bank qualifying. And you will get plenty of response, and you will figure out within a week what that house is really worth.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to so if you want to go test the market, you don't know what a market's worth. You're in New Haven, Connecticut, like we are, and decide you want to go to Akron, Ohio, but you don't know what Ohio is worth. Yeah. You just do a few of these option agreements, right? Sign them up. You do exactly what I just did, the 4 steps with the 6, situation analysis underneath it. Bing, bang, boom. That's literally a 15-minute conversation, by the way, if you do it correctly, right? Which, by the way, I put a script in the link that doesn't have all 6 of those, but it's pretty close. Okay, so it's called the Solopreneur script. It's in the chat. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's one of the documents I put in there. So you go do that, and you test. You get somebody, and you're like, I'm not sure about this deal. Right?
Sure.
So you sign an option agreement, you go test the market, and you go find, because what's the trick of negotiating with your seller? Knowing what you can sell for. Mm-hmm. So if you know that your buyers are willing to pay $200,000 and $1,500 a month, you got to pay less than $200,000 and $1,500 a month to make any money. It's not too hard. Why is this whole real estate thing so difficult? It's difficult because people think you have to acquire the property yourself and then go sell it. And I'm teaching you don't need to do that.
Yeah, well, that's where the risk and the worry go.
Yep. Number 2. That's number 1. I told you there's 2 major points. So that hopefully I've explained that. Mm-hmm. Number 2, and very important for rookies, you have to handle how to handle sellers' perceived values in deals. You do with this little formula. Okay, so it sounds like it's very complicated, and it's more complicated for me to explain this stuff to you than it actually is. But here's how it naturally goes, right? What you're looking for with the 4 questions. The purpose of asking the 4 questions is not only to make an offer, but you're looking for these 3 things. You personally. You're looking for the need. Is there a need? Or is there greed?
Mm.
So you're trying to figure out, is there a need or is there greed? A need would be, I just want this thing off my hands, take it, I don't care what you do with it.
Yeah.
And then greed is, yeah, well, there's $50,000 worth of equity and I'm looking to buy another house and I want that 50 grand.
Mm.
Right? So you're just trying to figure out what's need or greed. This is very important. It sounds way more complicated, me explaining it, than what it really is, because the natural flow is amazing. Second thing you have to make a decision on. These are business decisions.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this whole analysis, data analysis and situation analysis, you're bouncing it up against your personal integrity on whether you want to do this deal or not. So number 1 is it need or greed?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is the availability of your resources.
Mm.
And number 3 is your credibility. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that. Your capability.
Mm.
I don't know why I say credibility, because I'm trying to do 2 things at once. Right? So what you're going to do is, when you're asking the 4 questions, price, payment, duration, and down payment if they ask, and then you go find out the situation, their situation of why they're selling, using the 6 steps I just gave you. You are evaluating yourself, their need or greed, because it's going to make a difference on how you proceed. I'm going to explain that in a minute. You're gonna bounce it up against your available resources and your capability to do the deal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about number 1, right? If you use my little formula when asking the questions, price, payment, duration, down payment, if requested, you will discover the seller's need or greed, like I just said. Once you have the need to sell or the greed amount figured out, you can decide whether or not to talk about giving the seller payments or how much of a discount.
Mm.
So let me, because it sounds all technical.
Yeah.
So let's just role play real quick.
Sure.
So what I want you to do is, I want you to tell me you want all cash. Okay.
Sure.
So Peter, how much are you asking for the house?
I'm asking $200,000.
Okay. For me to be able to give you that amount of money, I have to give you monthly payments. Can we talk about that?
No, I need all cash. No.
Okay. So the only way for me to pay all cash is to get some sort of a discount. Are you willing to do that?
I could do a little, not a lot, because I do want the cash.
Okay, well, you realize if you go to a realtor, it's 12 to 15% in closing cost, right?
I didn't think it was that much.
Okay, so see what I'm talking about here? So that's kind of how, we did it quick and I didn't do it the way I just talked, but that's kind of how, that's the gist, so you can get the concept, right? So here's my point. This is where you're trying to figure out need or greed. So we figured out he doesn't need to sell, he just wants his money.
Yeah.
So in that case, we're not going to go through the payments, we're not going to go through the duration, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to go right to how much money he wants down, which is the full amount of money.
That's right. There's no payments involved, so the 4 breakdowns don't apply.
Well, there are payments if you want to keep the deal, because you're going to have payments for your private money. Like if he's willing to give me a 30% discount, I would go get private money and I would have payments to my private lender.
Right. On the other end, yeah.
Right. So there could be payments. It depends on how much of a discount he wants to give you.
Yeah, but that's not part of this conversation. That's your point, because he's not doing payments.
If he gives you at least 10% discount, which is how my system works, that's an option agreement, right? You need to make a decision based on the 3 things I told you, which is need and greed, the available resources you have, and your capability. So you have to decide, A, do I have private money or some way to pay him what he's asking because he wants all cash? And is it worth it? And your capability of being able to do that deal. Right?
Yep.
Now watch this. If it's a greed deal, and this is where a lot of rookies miss, and it took you and I, a year and a half during COVID to figure this out. It took me a year and a half, right? If it's a greed deal and they need all the money and give you a discount, you either need to raise the money yourself if you want the deal, which at 10% you shouldn't raise money, because if you're paying cash, you should at least get a 30% discount.
That's right.
But if you want the house, you raise the money yourself. 2, find private money, which are the common, obvious ones. Or number 3, sign an option agreement like I talked about a few minutes ago and get your buyer to bring the money to the table. And you can still make a deal.
Yep.
Now that lands into your capability. Are you capable of doing that? Right? So the whole evaluation of the 4 numbers and their situation come down to, do you want to do this deal or not? And the way you measure that is if it's need or greed, the available resources you have, and your capability. If it matches all of that and you're willing to do it, then you keep going. If it's not, then you can do one of 2 things. You can say to the seller, I've never done a deal like this. I need to go get some help. Are you willing to like, wait it out with me?
Yeah.
Are you willing to let me do that?
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, that's the best thing you can say. Most rookies think that's the wrong thing to say. That's the best thing, because if the seller's motivated, they will help you do a deal.
True. If they're motivated, you might be the only person talking to them the way you are to help them. And there might not be anybody else. So you could have a very good, very high perceived value. So they will work with you.
Right. So in the beginning, you may not want to do any option agreements in Find a Buyer. Right? Think of this. What if you sign an option agreement and you pass it around to guys like us that might want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can sell your option agreement to somebody else like me for $1,000 or $500.
Money in your hand.
Right. But realize this. Knowing the need or greed comes first. Evaluating the resources available comes next. And your capability comes last. They're in order. And just by asking the 4 questions, getting the data analysis and the situation analysis, you will naturally come to these conclusions. This is not some extra thing you need to do. It's not an extra step. I'm just clarifying how it's going to work in your mind. Does this make sense, or am I being too significant?
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
Definitely need notes.
Yeah. If you collect your deal information the way I've explained today, you'll soon notice that it is very natural. I'm telling you that if you use the paper calculator and you ask the questions, the price, the payment, you ask the price and then the 6 situation questions, and I promise you, you do 2 or 3 phone calls, you will be as good, if not better, than me on the phone, because that's how I do it. So it's not as hard as it sounds. I promise. You need to practice it or try it. Right? Most important thing to realize when using this little system is a fact. Now pay attention to what I'm going to tell you, because I've made numerous comments that all sellers are liars.
Yes, you have said that.
Here's why I say it. Because a fact is something that can be proven to exist by visible evidence. Right? The mortgage payment's $1,300. Show me the mortgage statement. Right? An opinion may or may not be based on any facts. Now watch this. Because I have been studying this. You know this, Peter. I've been studying this because I want to know why this is happening. I've been struggling with this for years, not anymore. After today's podcast, I completely got it nailed.
Really?
And here is what I've been studying. Sloppy evaluation. Sloppy information evaluation. A sloppy evaluation or untrained mind will not see the differences between the facts and opinions when gathering information.
The difference between facts and opinions. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, gee, we don't see that every day with the people around us listening to all the information going around the world of the media and believing, not believing, disbelieving, accepting, not accepting. On a whim, it seems like I choose to believe this today.
I could do a series of podcasts on just this, but I'm not going to. Just go look up the word. The word is propaganda.
Ooh.
What does propaganda mean?
Well, it's basically media lies.
Yeah.
It's just spreading rumors about things very convincingly and trying to convince the other side of the good guy, the bad guy, and I'm the good guy. You're all this belief.
So here we go. You ready? Propaganda. The definition of propaganda. Information, especially of bias or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Propaganda is information, especially of bias or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize particular political cause or point of view.
Yep.
So, just what you're saying, the information, what most people think is extraordinary information, is just common information. Everybody knows it. I used to have a partner, and he used to think that he was sophisticated. He was wealthy, and he had information I didn't have. But I watched the same news channel he did, so I always had the same information he did. So with the internet, with the news, with the communication, with our smartphones, with everything that we have today, you are correct. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because people are full of opinions, not facts. So when you're talking to a seller, they're going to say, well, the market's hot right now. That's why I'm asking $220 for a $180,000 house. That they only know that because that's what the news said, or that's what the article they read said on the internet, or that's what the realtor told them.
Well, that's what happened 6 months ago.
Right. Okay. So my point is that a sloppy evaluation or untrained mind will not see the differences between facts and opinions when gathering information.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
A big part of the news nowadays is, hey, remember what we told you last year? We found out that was incorrect.
Right.
Remember the stuff that you heard, all this stuff about this, that, or the other? Well, it turns out that it was incorrect. Yeah,
a good thing to do about that is apples are the best things you could eat for the human body.
Yep.
And then 6 months later, they're like, apples has been found to cause cancer.
Yep.
Right? It's like contrary facts, right?
Yep.
Okay. And contrary facts means that both facts can't be true. It's one or the other.
Eggs are good, eggs are bad. Olive oil is good, olive oil is bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So just make sure you evaluate the data of the deal first, then evaluate the situation of the deal, and you will flush out the facts and opinions very smoothly. When something doesn't make sense or feels odd, don't go further until it makes sense to you. And that's the rule.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully all this made sense to you today, and it will change your life like it's changed our lives. I know it's a lot of significance today, and it seems a little profound. But if you go back and write down the 6 points of this situation, how to find out, and it's observe, those, right? If you write those down and you follow them when you're asking each one of the 4 questions, and then when you get all done, you decide, is this a need or greed deal? Can I do it with my available resources? And am I capable of doing it? You will notice a huge difference. And I promise you, if you use the 6 situation questions, right, that you will be in good communication with your seller because they're going to feel like you care about them.
I was going to make a comment that they will have more confidence in you. And you're saying it a little different than I am, but I got the idea that the person would feel more confident because you're asking very pointed, logical questions that are just sensible. And I think that'll help build confidence in you. And that's huge.
Yes. Yeah. And it'll make you like a pro, even if you're not, just by asking those questions.
You'll be communicating.
It'll build rapport, because I always say the way to build rapport is to talk about the house or the situation. That'll build rapport. It puts everything in perspective.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to do. And even though I've said it 100 times already, it sounds more difficult than it is to do it. Just go back and listen to this podcast again. Write down the 4 questions. The 4 questions are the memorandum. It's the price, the payment, you know those. And then on each one of them, you do it. You evaluate the data, like the price or the payment or the duration. And then you evaluate the situation of why they're asking that price. And why are they asking that payment? And why do they want that amount of time? And if you use the 6 questions or the 6 steps that I just told you, it'll pop out like water and oil. Then when you get all done with that, you figure out if it's a need or greed deal. You figure out if you're available resources and if you're capable of doing it. And then you're done.
That's like a whole blueprint, Bill.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we're 7 minutes over the hour. Thank you very much for listening to us today. Hopefully, I was able to crack your ability to make some more deals. And don't forget to go subscribe to us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Leave a comment if you could. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, hit a like button or any one of the emojis and let us know what you think. Give us feedback. We'd love to hear it. If you have any questions, you can go to WhatsApp Messenger, find Let's Talk Real Estate. Or if you can't find the link, send me a support ticket at flippinghousesforrookies.com/support, and I will send you the link. Or if you have a question for me directly, just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/support. We're over now. We'll talk to you on podcast number 338.